Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for another video. Today I'm bringing you week 4 of the Christmas in July collaboration that I've been doing. So week 4's theme is gifts or giving something as a gift. So my idea was to create a project that you could put together and have on hand to give as a gift, of course, potentially for Christmas time. This mini album takes 7 pieces of 8.5 by 11 cardstock. In order to decorate it, you need 20 pieces of designer cardstock that are 6 by 6. So you can either, of course, do that with a 6 by 6 pad or take a 12 by 12 collection kit and cut that down. And this will hold about 18 4x4 photos, 4x4 or 5x5. If you're doing smaller photos, you can probably get quite a few more than that. And then I have some other ideas for this book, and I will kind of explain those as we go. But let me show you today what we're making. This is the spine of our book, and this is the side that opens. And you can see that I have a 1-inch spine here, and this is essentially 2 half-inch spines, but it opens something like this. And there is a page here that opens up, and then on each side there's just a little accordion, and each of these accordions is 3 pages, so 1, 2, 3, meaning 6 areas for photos, and you have that on both sides. So we're going to go ahead and get started making this album. It just takes a few minutes. There are just a couple different cuts that you have to do, and the scoring is easy, and we'll just glue it all together and have it done in just a few minutes. We're going to start by setting one piece aside. We're going to cut that differently than these 6. These 6 we are going to cut to 6 1/4 by 11. Our sheet's already 11 tall, so we're just going to cut all 6 of these sheets at 6 1/4, and I'm just going to do 2 at a time. Set these aside. Okay, so I have 6 that are 6 1/4 by 11. This last sheet, sheet number 7, we are going to cut to be, again, 6 1/4, but this time by 8.5. So I'm going to take the remainder, the remnant, put it aside. And this we are going to turn and cut it into 2 pieces that are 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. So now we have these 2, and we're going to set those to the side. So our 6 sheets really are pairs. We are going to score 2 the same, and then 2 the same, and then 2 the same. So I'm going to grab my first 2 going to grab my bone folder, and the first two are going to be scored at 1 inch. Put that in there. Then I'm going to score at 7 1/4 and 7 3/4. And the next one is the same. I'm going to score at 1 inch, 7 1/4, and 7 3/4. So now we have two pieces that have a score at each 1 inch, 7 1/4, and 7 3/4. We are going to go ahead and fold these two now. Burnish them on each of those score lines. And right now we're not really too concerned about which orientation you're folding the score marks. Right now we're just trying to loosen up the fibers of the paper where we have those scores. Next thing that we're going to do is create the cover and spine, outside spine of our book. We're going to do that by gluing this 1 inch by 6 1/4 section on top of the other 1 inch by 6 1/4 section. And you just want to take a moment, figure out what the easiest way is going to be for you to do this. I know that some people will use the top of their scoreboard to kind of get the papers lined up. I just glue and kind of do a little bit of this to shuffle them together. So just take a moment and decide what you think is the best way for you. And what you don't want to do is glue on top of the score mark. You want to put this piece of paper, the edge of this paper, right up against that score mark, but not over it, because we still need that fold to fold. So just, oops, just like that. Just gonna line it up a little bit here. And that, folks, is the cover and outside spine of our book. You see, just like that. So now I'm gonna kind of lay this up here. Now we're going to take our two small pieces. So these are the ones that we cut at 6 1/4 by 4 1/4. And essentially what we're going to do is make these little flaps here a 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 page. So you can do this definitely by so we are going to go ahead and use what we know is a 6 1/4 piece of paper and kind of use that as our guide. So I want my paper so I want to make a little mark at 6 1/4. Of course, you can grab your trusty ruler or T-square or whatever you've got and measure from this score mark, so this one that's further out, right, that's folded there, to 6 1/4 inches, or you can just kind of line up with your paper, make a mark. A lot of times I make a mark with my thumb, and we're just going to glue this down. If you want this to be absolutely perfect, then you can make a line down the side with your pencil, but we just want this to be 6 1/4 by 6 1/4, as close as possible. So I know that I'm just going to line up this mark with my paper and just glue down this section. So you can also aligning with my mark here, I'm just going to align and put another mark right here. I didn't score it all the way. I didn't go all, very far down. But now I know where the line is, where my glue is going to stop. And I'm just going to lay that in here, kind of following this line that I had before. And lining it up at the top and the bottom. Oops, there we go. So that it's mostly even. Let's do that again. This time, I know that this is 6 1/4, so from this area to this area, it's 6 1/4. I make a mark with my thumbnail. You can make a mark with your pencil, and just double checking, because even when you're using paper to measure, you want to measure twice. So I know that my paper is going to lay this far. Lay this flat, make another mark, and now I know where my glue goes. So I'm just going to glue this entire section here. Oops. Yeah, that's a little too much. I went a little too far, but that's okay. Finding this mark, but I'm also lining up at the top and the bottom, so that's straight. Just gluing this down and making sure that this score mark is flat once I finally burnish it down. And then we should be just at 6 1/4 and just at 6 1/4. Now that might have been uncomfortable for some people. It is kind of measuring and kind of eyeballing at the same time. If you want to measure, like I said, you just take the time to draw your lines, and then just make sure you go back and erase them afterwards. Of course, if you make the lines kind of in the middle here, you don't even have to worry about erasing them, because we're going to cover them up with paper at the end. So The next two pieces we are going to score the same. However, we are going to score them at 1 and 7 1/4 and stop there. Again, this one is at 1 and 7 1/4. Just gonna fold and burnish. Fold. So these two will go in our books. This 1-inch flap almost seems like it should be on top of this 1-inch spine, but it's going to be right next to it. So this 1-inch flap is really just to adhere this page down to our book, and we are going to have the score line here. So here's our 1-inch section folded under, and we are just going to glue that 1-inch section down so that it is right next to the 1-inch spine. So there's the spine, and there's the other end of the spine, and we want it right next to it. So we're going to take our 1-inch section, put some glue, and line it up at the top and the bottom and nestle it right in against that score line. It is a little too high, so I'm going to reconnoiter here. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing with this one, only on the other side. Okay, now these last two pieces of cardstock that we have cut at 6 1/4 by 11, we are going to just score them at 6 1/4. Oops. This one as well at 6 1/4. So the key here when working with these two sheets is to remember which is the small side and which is the actual 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 side. Because at this point we don't really want to glue down the wrong one. take our book. Let me go ahead and close this up really quick just to kind of show you where we're at. Here's our book closed. Here's the 1-inch spine. The 2 1/2-inch spines opens this way with a sheet like this. And then we have the start of our 2 accordions just like this. And what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and glue these 2 sections together so that they are 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. And the easiest way to do that, we know that this is 6 1/4, so I'm just going to line this in here. And I'm going to glue this section to this section. And the folds may not be exactly right yet, the orientation, but that's okay. We're just going to get it glued together and then we will retrain our paper. So I'm just going to go ahead, make a little score mark there, not very hard, not all the way through. And now I know where to glue. And so this one you want to make sure that it kind of aligns at the top and the bottom, of course, and that you have it kind of nestled in there a little bit, but not too far. Fold this over it, fold this on top. Gonna burnish because that's quite a bit of glue and quite a large area. Then we're gonna go over to this other side, do the same thing. I'm going to take this one and this shorty, put them together to make them 6 1/4. I know that this is already 6 1/4. So I'm going to lay this in here. Make a little mark. And if I didn't show before, I'm sure that it probably makes sense, but I just have this piece of 6 1/4 just nestled right in the fold there. I made my mark and now we're just going to glue. Got glue way too far out here, but that's okay. I'm gonna end up covering it up anyway, so it'll take care of itself. Just figured I would kind of clean it off a little bit just so there's not a big lump of hard dried glue right there. Now I have to clean off my tool. And you guys, that is it. That is the book. All you have to do now is make sure you have these pages folded in the right orientation. This first piece is flush against this back, so you want the other 2 folds to be on top of it, because that's why we have the 1/4-inch gusset here. We're going to put some paper and ephemera and whatever's, photos and things on these pages, so they're going to sit a little higher than they are now, and then we have this 1/2-inch gusset that will take care of those on both sides. So this one also, you want to make sure that you have it in the right fold orientation. Close it up. Book is done. All right. Just sit tight for a moment. I'm going to show you a flip through of a completed album decorated with that Happy Christmas paper. But first, I'm just going to take you through the paper that I'm choosing from. Some of the sheets are already cut into because I used them last Christmas for a Christmas project. But this pack is still on the market and available. If you want to check it out, I can put a link down below. I'll be right back. Here's our little book all decorated. The side's fine. The other side's fine. The back. Just went ahead and put one of the 4x4 cut aparts here and aligned it with one of the stickers. And so here are inside flaps. Inside each one I went ahead and put a 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 little photo mat. And we have one pull-out accordion on the right side. I'll show you that. Looks like this. And then like this. And then on the back page here, I went ahead and put some of the cut aparts. I have 2 of the 4x4 and then 2 of the 3x4. For this, I didn't put this pocket in the video tutorial, only because I just kind of added it at the end. I had covered this entire page. Usually when I do a pocket, I'll just add the pocket and not cover the entire like 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 behind it. But I decided at the last minute to put in a pocket here. So I just took a strip of the leftover 8.5 by 11 white paper and then a scrap of the designer paper and glued that down. And then I did the same on the other side. Let me show you this. Here's the fold out accordion piece. And then just some little different of the designer paper there. And the same thing here. Got 2 of the 4x4 cut aparts and 2 of the 3x4 cut aparts in a pocket. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching another video. Don't forget to check out the other participants in this hop. They will all be linked below, and they are super talented crafters and artists. I hope that you will check out their projects and tell them that I sent you. And don't forget, safety first.